The past few weeks has been absolutely incredible. With the 21 days of fasting that we just completed here at the church, it's just been an absolutely amazing experience. And so many people are starting to see promises that are being given to them. Other people are creating new relationships with God. The church is going through an immense change right now, and it's just been absolutely amazing to see all of that. I just want to preface this sermon with that because there's a lot of things that are happening, but in the lives of some other people, things they might not be seeing exactly what they want to be seeing. I know that in myself, and I know other people as well. They thought that God was going to be doing something in their lives, but it didn't exactly go that way. So maybe you are going to be that type of person, and in those types of shoes, that maybe you think that God was telling you something, but now you're kind of having doubts on, did God really actually tell me what that thing was? And so, guys, I just thank you so much for everybody being here. I hope you guys are having an amazing week, and I'm excited that you guys are here. We got 97 people in the chat, so just thank you so much for being here, you guys. If you're just stepping in for the first time, this is God Squad Church, and we're going to go into a sermon right now, and it's going to, God has been giving me something that I think is going to be, I needed it. Usually when a pastor preaches something, usually the pastor that's actually preaching it is the person that needs to hear it the most a lot of times. But I really think that this is going to help you guys to really honestly focus in and hone in on something and be encouraged, specifically in times of doubt. And so I've entitled the sermon, Delayed Promises. Just a few weeks ago, we had Unworthy Seraph preaching, and he had what was it called? It was called the pre-ordered promise. And guys, this week it's going to be the delayed promise. And so first thing I kind of want to talk about is, have you guys ever been excited for a video game before? I mean, as gamers, we are excited when E3 comes around, PAX East, PAX West. We have the PlayStation conference that's coming up soon. We get so excited when the release date comes and hits that screen, and we're like, yes, I've been waiting for this game for 7 years, and I only have 3 more months. But a lot of times, that isn't always the case. You know, we have Kingdom Hearts 3, maybe you were excited about. Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn, any one of the Final Fantasy series, maybe you've been a huge fan of that. I know for myself, the Zelda series, I'm a massive Zelda fan, right? But a lot of times what happens is the game, we get that release date, but then the developer comes on a little bit later and like, oh, guys, we gave you a release date, but I'm sorry, we're going to have to delay it for a little while. We're not going to be able to actually hit that day that we expected to be able to hit, and so we're going to have to delay it for just a little bit longer. And sometimes it gets delayed multiple times, and unfortunately, sometimes it's for many years. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of the biggest memes on the internet for many years was Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, let's be completely honest. Kingdom Hearts 2 came out when people were 12 years old, and they didn't even get Kingdom Hearts 3 until they were like 25. Like, they're already in adulthood. They got jobs. They got things that are going on, and they didn't get the game until finally they were an adult. I mean, they'd watch E3, and E3 would start showing all these Kingdom Hearts moments, right? They're showing everything. They're like, this is it. This is it, guys. Kingdom Hearts 3 is finally coming out. And then right across the screen, it says Kingdom Hearts 2.8. Excuse me? 2. What is this? Is this a patch for Kingdom Hearts 2? Then you get Kingdom Hearts 1.5 remix, Kingdom Hearts 2.5 remix. You get a movie, but you can't get Kingdom Hearts 3? What in the world? You know? And so you wait for it, and you wait for it, and you wait for it, and then finally it comes out later on. Let's talk about a couple other delays that we had. Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn. Guys, this is one of the most interesting delays I've ever seen. First of all, the game wasn't even called Final Fantasy 14 when it was first being announced. It was called Final Fantasy 13 Versus. And I don't even know what that game was supposed to be, but they announced it at E3, and the project got scrapped completely. They started firing people. They hired new people. and decided to make an MMO called Final Fantasy XIV. And Final Fantasy XIV was the biggest flop ever. The biggest flop ever in the Final Fantasy franchise, unfortunately. However, what ended up happening was they once again scrapped the entire project. They hired new people, and 5 years later they came out with Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. And it was Final Fantasy XIV did so bad that the storyline in Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn actually they had something called the Calamity that destroyed the entire realm 5 years before. And it was used as a metaphor for the game that flopped so hard, and they actually had to remake the entire realm. And there comes Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, which ended up being one of the great MMOs of today. And then one of the other games, like I said, the Legend of Zelda series. Please put a hashtag Zelda in the chat if you're a big Legend of Zelda fan, because honestly, the Legend of Zelda is absolutely amazing. I love the franchise, but the Legend of Zelda is plagued with delays. You might not believe me, but it is. I go 2 decades worth. Let me tell you, almost every single major Zelda title has been delayed at some point or another. Ocarina of Time was delayed. Wind Waker. Twilight Princess was delayed like 2 or 3 times. It was delayed for only a year. But the thing was it was made so late in the GameCube's life. It was supposed to be a GameCube game, but it came out as a GameCube game and a Wii game because it was so late that they finally were like, all right, let's delay it one more time. Let's put it on the Wii. And then comes Breath of the Wild, right? We get an announcement in 2013. They tell us in 2015 that it's releasing in 2015, and then they delay it. And then they delayed it again. And then they delayed it again. And finally, we got it in 2017, and it actually released on the day that the Switch came out. And so what was once the Wii U Zelda game ended up being exactly what Twilight Princess was, a Wii U and a Switch game. These delays just happen. But why do developers delay these games so much? We have the developers, their boss actually tells them that they need to put a release date so that people can start pre-ordering it, get the hype going and things like that. And the developers a lot of times are like, we don't think we can make that date. Just make it. We'll delay it if we need to. Other times, developers, they really think they're going to be able to hit that date, but they say, you know what, the date's coming up. We got 6 months to go. There's too many bugs in this game. Ubisoft, they don't care. They're just going to throw it out there anyway. Let's be honest. They throw out broken games all the time. So we got bugs in the game. We got mechanical or different things that are just going wrong graphically. There's a lot of stuff that it's just not as smooth. It's not a smooth experience. We need to make the AI a little bit better. And so what they end up doing is they say, all right, let's delay it for another year, and then maybe it will be polished a little bit more. So we get delays a lot as gamers, and delays are unfortunate, and we get upset when, the developers start delaying games. But a lot of times, this also goes for our lives as well. Sometimes there's delays in our lives. Promotions, maybe you're looking for financial security. Maybe you're trying to find somebody that in your life that you're going to be marrying sometime. Maybe you're looking for healing or somebody in your life to be healed. And then other times you're praying for somebody to come to know Jesus Christ. But these things are just getting delayed. And I think a lot of the times, we get even more upset, and it gets really disheartening when we really feel like that God has given us a promise. I promise you that this is going to happen, but it doesn't even look like a reality in any way, shape, or form. It's like the walls of Jericho. The walls of Jericho were so high, and Joshua was looking at it. How are we going to get through this wall? He didn't see what God was going to actually be doing. And a lot of times it's the same thing in our lives. We can't understand what God is doing, why he's delaying the process and the promise that he's given to us. So the question becomes, why does God delay his promises? A lot of you just went through the 21 days of fasting that we just did, and you're saying to God, I just did so much fasting. I prayed so much more. I gave up video games. I gave up computer time. I gave up eating. I gave up reading books. I gave up all these different things. And what instead, I decided to spend time with you, using all this time, extra time that I have to spend it with you. And we developed a greater relationship with each other. You were telling me things, you were speaking to me, and all these great things. But the one thing that I prayed about, the promise that you gave me 10 years ago, you didn't answer it. Why didn't you answer it? Why is there a delay? And a lot of times that's when the doubt starts coming in our mind. Did God really give me that promise? Or was it something that was just in my head? Did God really speak to me at all? Or was it just a voice that I was telling myself because that's what I wanted to happen? Here's the thing. I'm calling this sermon Delayed Promises, but it's not a delay for God. It's a delay for us, but for God, it's because it's in his timing and it's the right time when he brings it in. And so we're going to look at the first text, guys, and it's going to be from Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8-9. And it says this: "For my thoughts are not your thoughts." Come on, the Lord is saying this. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." And so we move into the meat of the sermon, guys. There's I'm gonna talk to you guys. I'm gonna give a couple of points on why God might be delaying the promise that he's given to you in your life. And so the first point is this: that God delays his promises in our lives to call us into a deeper faith in him. Most humans, we rely on circumstances. When things are going well, God is just blessing us. Maybe you got the family, you have your spouse that you love so much. You have the money, you have the dream job, just think you have, the cars, you have everything that you ever needed. And God's just continuing to bless you over and over. And in those times, it's not that hard to have faith in God when he's just raining blessings down on you. But as we all know, circumstances are temporary, and that circumstances change. And so things aren't always the blessings that we thought it was going to be, but maybe you have a time where you get fired from your job. That relationship with your spouse that you thought was so strong at one point, maybe things aren't going well anymore. And you guys are just fighting all the time. You just don't understand why it's happening. Maybe somebody in your family gets sick and you're looking for healing, but the healing just isn't coming. And sometimes people in our families, they pass away as well. And that hurts. And we go through these times, but here's the thing: our faith, our joy, our hope, if we're placing them in circumstances, our faith, hope, and joy are all going to be completely temporary. They're not going to be based on the one thing that is eternal, the one that is everlasting. Because if we're putting our faith in God and God alone, he is eternal, guys. And yes, we're still going to have times where our faith is being tried. Absolutely, that does happen. But when our faith is so strong in God and we have a deep faith in him, it is so much harder for that faith to be broken. But when we're putting in all these temporary things, we could put our faith in video games, we could put them in movies, we could put them in our job, we could put them in our money. But all these things, they could go away in the blink of an eye. And then where is your faith? It's gone, because your faith wasn't in something that's eternal. But when we're placing our faith, when we're placing our passion, let me tell you, if your joy and your faith and your hope can be stolen away by the enemy, you're placing your faith in the wrong place. You cannot be placing your joy out there. If your boss can take your joy away, if your enemies can take your joy away, if your coworkers can take your joy away, you are placing it in the wrong place. But it needs to be in God and God alone. Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins so that we could have joy in him, not in all these different temporary things in the world, but joy in an everlasting God who will never, ever, ever, ever let you down. His promises are true. They are mighty. And I promise you that if you're continuing to have a deeper faith in him, those promises, you're going to see them come through eventually. A deeper faith in him. Our circumstances should not determine our faith. So I'm going to move right now into James chapter 1, verses 2-4. James is such a good book. I love this book. And he says this, he says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness," or perseverance. "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything." So when things get hard and the promise doesn't seem to be at hand, God is calling us to trust him more and more and more during that time. He doesn't want our faith to be based on situations and circumstances. And when we have that fiery trial come our way, he doesn't want our faith to just die down, but he wants our joy, our faith, and our hope to be placed on him and him alone. Because when it is, it cannot be broken, because God is not broken. Like I said, there's still going to be times where your faith is going to be tried. Absolutely. But when we're placing all of our faith in him, when we're placing everything in him, it cannot be broken. Also, he may know that if he gave you the breakthrough right now, you wouldn't be able to handle it. He's saying to me, wait, you're telling me if God gave me what I've been praying for, these promises, that I wouldn't be able to handle it? I'm pretty sure that I'd be able to handle the good things happening. But God's seeing something else. He's saying, okay, I can give you this right now, but listen, there's a bigger trial coming your way. And your faith is not in me yet. And I know that when that trial comes, your faith is going to be completely broken. And I don't want you to be broken. So God is actually showing you love and knowing that he wants you to grow a little bit deeper in faith before he gives you that breakthrough. A second reason why he might not be giving you this promise or that breakthrough right now is because he knows that you wouldn't give him the glory. He's sitting there and he's thinking, listen, if I gave you the promise right now, you'd be actually giving all yourself all the glory. You'd be giving the situation the glory. You'd be giving somebody else the glory, but you wouldn't be praising my name. And he's waiting for you to grow into a deeper faith to know that when that breakthrough comes, you can say, it was all God. There's nobody else that could have ever have produced this except for God and God alone. So if your faith is deeper, a lot of times that's all he wants, is for our faith to become deeper. Also, God has other things in mind when he's while you're waiting for your promise. And this part is called deeper purposes. God delays our promises so that other purposes can happen as well. People say this saying all the time. They always say, God allows things to happen for a reason. I usually switch that up a little bit. Not that I take anything away from that or anything like that, but God allows things to happen for multiple reasons. He doesn't just allow things to happen for one reason in your life. The good things, the bad things, it doesn't matter what it is. He allows multiple things. He allows these things to happen to you, and he allows you to go through these things for multiple reasons. You may not see the immediate reason why you're struggling right now or why you're waiting on the promise, but you were so sure that God gave this promise to you, yet you're still waiting. But it seems to be that God is at work in another area as well. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a testimony right now, and it's some of you know a little bit of this testimony. I think there's only like 2 people in my life that know everything. I'm not going to give everything out right now. But many of you know that my wife has a lot of health issues. Okay, I'll give you guys a couple of them. She has gastroparesis and celiac disease. She's really had stomach problems ever since she was young, ever since she was born, really. They saw it when she was a young child, but just a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, she got diagnosed with gastroparesis and celiac disease. She also struggles with severe migraines as well, which I don't know how people deal with migraines. If you guys have migraines out there, listen, I feel for you, because I watch what my wife goes through on a daily basis with migraines, and it's got to be absolutely horrible. And so just pray for you. I pray for you guys on a daily basis. So she struggles with migraines. She has neuropathy and myelopathy due to a slipped disc that fell in her spinal cord. So it gives her neck pain, leg pain, arm pain, and back pain, to the point where sometimes she can't even get out of bed, right? And this sounds like a sap story and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to make it a sap story, but what I'm trying to get across is my wife deals with a lot of ailments, a lot of issues, okay? Then through the midst of all of this, something else started happening as well. She started getting anxiety and depression as well. And it was because of some of the circumstances that, yes, she has, but also circumstances that were coming up as well. Her dad ended up, he ended up getting diagnosed with cancer just about 4 years ago. And he was supposed to be able to have surgery on it. They were supposed to be able to remove everything and kind of get everything out. But unfortunately, it had already spread in his body. And so they were putting him on treatments and cancer treatments and things like that, medicine. But throughout this whole entire time, Danielle's mom she understands who God is, and she believed in God, but she wasn't surrendering her life over to him. She was even doing things at church. She wasn't going to any church. She wasn't a member of a church. But she believed in God, and she believed in doing good for other people, but she just didn't surrender her life over. And anytime Danielle really talked about it, she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And even when Danielle first got saved when she was 13 years old, her mother was like, you're brainwashed. I can't believe my child turned out to be like this. You're completely brainwashed. And so that really hurt Danielle a lot. But through the ailments that Danielle had, it brought her mother, and through prayer as well, obviously, it brought her mother into a closer relationship with God, to the point where she was like on a fence. Like if she fell one way, she was going to fall away. If she fell the other way, she was just surrendering wholly over to God. And then when Danielle's father got cancer, just about a year and a half later, her mom finally surrendered her life to the Lord. She knew, I can't do this alone. I can't go through my husband having cancer. I can't go through my daughter going through all of these struggles, but I can do it with God. And she gave her life to the Lord. Now, all these struggles are still happening and things like that. And then here's the amazing thing. Danielle's father, he was not a Christian either. He wasn't. But unfortunately, he did lose his battle with cancer, and he did pass away. But the night before he passed away, Danielle's mother sat next to him in bed, and she led him to a saving grace and knowledge of Jesus Christ that night, the night before he passed away. Let me tell you, if Danielle's mother had never gotten saved, if Danielle had never come to have all these ailments, and her father never had cancer, you may think that all of these things are bad things to happen, and they are. But God was at work, because there were other purposes that were going on. Would Danielle and I have loved to have Danielle been healed 3 to 4 years ago? Absolutely. Hands down, no doubt, I would have loved Danielle to have been healed. Absolutely. If God were to ask us 3 or 4 years ago, would you like me to heal Danielle? Yes or no? I would check the yes mark. Yes, please. But without a doubt in my mind, I want you to heal Danielle. But if God asked me now, would you have rather have me healed Danielle 3 to 4 years ago? Or would you rather have me have waited because there were other purposes that I was doing in her family's life? Without a doubt, both of us would have waited. And to be completely honest, even though the things that we went through were struggles, I had 2 of the worst days in my life that I didn't talk about during this time. We would do it again, to make sure that people were being saved, to make sure that other people's life were being benefited. Yes, I want my wife to be healed, absolutely. But God is at work in other people's lives, because there's other promises that he made to other people, and those people need their promises to be answered as well. And so you might be thinking to yourself, why is my promise not coming? But the reason why is because God is at work all around you. And we can praise him for that. We can praise him for that. If you continue to trust in him and have a deeper faith in him, you will start to see purposes that God had in mind around you to bring himself the glory while you're waiting for your promise. And I can promise you this, that if you truly have faith in God, you're still going to want your breakthrough. I'm not saying that, but if you truly have faith in God, each purpose that you see that changes the life of another individual for the better of them, you wouldn't change it for the world. And I promise you that you wouldn't change it for the world, because I understand what that's like. I understand the pain. I've been through it, but I promise you that seeing another person's life change, especially when other people come to know Jesus Christ because of what you're waiting for on your promise, it is a feeling like you've never had before. I can promise you that. So the waiting period that you're going through right now is not all lost, but God is at work around you. And finally, we get the last point, guys, the moment we've been waiting for, the moment you have all been waiting for, the breakthrough, right? God has promised you something and you've been waiting for this breakthrough, the deeper breakthrough. You've been waiting for that healing, that blessing, that peace that you've been searching for all along. And then God does something that you couldn't even imagine or think of. Let's go back to the video game analogy for just a minute. When we all want that video game release day, right? We all want that video game release day. Then we get delay after delay after delay. And then finally, we get the final product. There's a few exceptions to this. Hashtag unfortunately. Okay, listen. Some of you, I don't know if any of you were Duke Nukem fans. I wasn't really, so I didn't even know about this until this week. But Duke Nukem Forever. Let me tell you, Duke Nukem fans were waiting for Duke Nukem Forever for 15 years. 15 years. And Duke Nukem Forever was an absolute train wreck. I mean, Duke Nukem fans were upset. They waited for 15 years. Yeah, I waited for 15 years for this trash. So with a few exceptions like Duke Nukem Forever, we usually get something in the final product that is something that when they showed it at E3 7 years ago, they showed a trailer. We're like, wow, that looks amazing. The mechanics in the game are so great. The graphics, astounding. Wow, that looks great. I can't wait for this game to come out. And then we get delay. And then we get another delay and delay. And 7 years later, finally the game comes out. But here's the thing, when the game comes out, it doesn't even look like the game that you saw at E3 7 years ago. You had a vision of what it was supposed to look like, but they took out some mechanics. They put in some new mechanics, and you sit down finally with that game in your hands when you get home with it on the release day. You put it in your system, and everything is beautiful. You got flawless graphics. You got the perfect mechanics in the game. You have a smooth experience. The narrative is the best narrative that you have ever heard. It's a great story, and it can't be beat. And finally, you're sitting there, and at the end, you're sitting there, and it was one of the best gaming experiences that you have ever had in your entire life as the credit screen rolls down at the end of the game. And you sit there and you say, wow, that was worth it. That was worth the wait. I had that feeling with Breath of the Wild. Let me tell you, I loved Breath of the Wild. It's not my favorite video game. Number 2. Hashtag a link to the past for the win. But Breath of the Wild was such a good game. And I sat there and they changed mechanics around. They changed the graphics. I remember when it got announced in 2013. I was so hyped. And then 2015, they started showing some of the mechanics. I was like, that's so cool. Then he took out those mechanics. And I was like, what? Why would you take that out? And I started realizing why they took out some of those mechanics years and years later. But after the final product came out and I finally beat the game, I was sitting there, I was like, man, that was good experience. And I can continue experiencing it, right? But the reason why it was so good was because it didn't come out when it was supposed to. I had to wait for it. There was a delay. There were multiple delays, unfortunately. And I was upset about those delays. But when it finally came out, it was a great experience. God wants this breakthrough for you. Something that you could have never imagined. God has been working all these years on your breakthrough, all these years that you've been waiting for it. God has been working. For the people that stay the path, who run the race, suffered through the fiery trial that you went through, the situations and circumstances that weren't exactly the best times in your life. You kept the faith. You continued leaning on the strength that only God can give, and you saw it through to the end. You are going to be those people that experience a breakthrough, the breakthrough that God promised you all along, but something that's even so much better than what he showed you in the first place. Because like I said, he may have showed you a promise 10 years ago, but it doesn't look anything like what it's actually going to be, because God has been at work in it all along. He may have showed you a vision of what it's supposed to look like, but it's going to be even bigger and even better because you were able to wait the entire time. And now you might be saying to me, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I've never really seen that in the lives of other people. I've never seen this bigger breakthrough. I'm going to give you guys just a few examples from the Bible, from biblical characters, that there was a massive wait and delay in their lives, but then there was a massive breakthrough in multiple ways as well. I'm going to start off with Abraham and Sarah. Hashtag unworthy Sarah, pre-order promise for the win. But before the pre-order promise came, Abraham, he was told by God, he was promised by God, you're going to be the father of many nations. All right, that's cool, but I need a son, and my wife, unfortunately, she can't have kids. So Sarah was like, all right, if you're supposed to be a father of many nations, you're going to have a child with my maidservant Hagar. So Abraham and Hagar have a child, and they have a kid named Ishmael. This is very important for a couple of stories later. Just remember the name Ishmael, okay? Remember that for a second. But eventually they get the pre-ordered promise. God tells them in 1 year you're going to have a child, and Abraham and Sarah eventually have a child named Isaac. And that is the start of the line of Jesus Christ. And it's absolutely amazing. Go down a little bit more. They had to wait for it. They had a delay, but they eventually got that promise. You have Jacob, right? Jacob had to wait for the one that he loved so much. He had to work for 7 years to get his wife Rachel, right? No. What happened? Well, his uncle decided to trick him. And so Jacob waited for 7 years. He worked for 7 years to get Rachel. And unfortunately, he was tricked, and he eventually had Leah as his wife. Jacob's sitting there. He's like, dude, why would you trick me like that? His uncle's like, you know what? Work for me for another 7 years. And then you can have Rachel, the one that you love. Jacob says, okay, you know what? I love Rachel so much, I'll work for another 7 years. And so he worked for another 7 years and eventually got Rachel. He was waiting. He had to wait for that breakthrough. He eventually got it. But here's the thing, what a lot of people don't realize, Leah ended up being a purpose that God had all along. Listen, Jacob's uncle, I believe his name was Laban. We make mistakes a lot of time, but God uses our mistakes for his glory. Laban sinned against God by lying to Jacob, okay? And he gave Leah to Jacob. Not what Jacob wanted, but here's the thing. What a lot of people don't understand, if God hadn't allowed Laban to trick Jacob, we would have never seen Jesus Christ be born. Because Leah then had Judah. God would have had to find another way to have Jesus Christ. He would have had to find another way to have him in the line, because Leah eventually had Judah. Going down from Judah, we find King David. Going down from King David, we have Jesus Christ. So even our mistakes, God brings for his own glory. And then we have the amazing story of Joseph, right? Joseph, he's got all these people bowing down to him, his mother, his father, his brothers. He's gotten these visions, these dreams, 2 dreams specifically, that these people are bowing down to him. They're bowing down to him. The brothers, they're not liking it so much. We get together. This dreamer. I don't know if that's really, a really bad thing, but this dreamer, look at him over there, coming to check on us. Let's throw him in a pit. Let's kill him. Let's strip off his colored robe and throw him in a pit. So they strip off the robe, throw him in a pit, and they're going to leave him for dead, right? And then the older brother says, maybe we shouldn't leave him for dead. But hey, there's some traders coming along. We can sell him as a slave to those people. And who comes along? I'm about to drop another bomb on you guys. The Ishmaelites. The who? Ishmaelites. If God had never allowed Abraham and Hagar to have another child, we would not have the story of Joseph as we see it today. He wouldn't have been brought to Egypt. He wouldn't have been put in Potiphar's house. He wouldn't have been accused of wrongdoings. He wouldn't have been put in prison. He wouldn't have been taken out of prison and been second over all of Egypt, only under Pharaoh. He wouldn't have stored up all the food because of the visions that he had, and his brothers would have died, and we once again wouldn't have Jesus Christ because they would have died during the famine because they were hungry and they had no food, and they had to go to Egypt to their brother and bow down to him and get that food. Little did they know that when they sold him to the Ishmaelites, that Joseph was going to save all of them and save a generation of people. This is generations, years and years and years after Abraham and Sarah. This is generations after them. And God used Ishmael for his purpose and for his promise to somebody else. Let's go through a couple more stories really quickly. King David, he's being hunted by the previous king, King Saul. King David was the real king. God had taken the kingship away from King Saul, the king of the Israelites. And unfortunately, David couldn't take his royal throne. He had to wait for it because he was being hunted by King Saul. So he had to wait for his royal throne to be established in the first place. The woman in the New Testament who was hemorrhaging for 12 straight years, she had to wait for Jesus Christ to come around. She had to wait 12 years, but because of her deeper faith, because she believed in Jesus Christ, she said, oh, if I only just touch his garment, I have so much faith that even if I just touch his garment, I'm going to be healed. She touches his garment, she's been healed, but she had to wait for it, and she had to have a deeper faith as well. And finally, we get to the last story. Jesus, this story is amazing, guys. You have Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, three people that Jesus loved so much. He loved them so much. They were his best friends. Mary and Martha, they come to Jesus one day and say, Jesus, our brother Lazarus, the one you love, he's sick. He's dying. It's not like he has the sniffles. He's on his deathbed. He is dying. But if you come quickly, if you come here now, you might just be able to save him. We believe that you can heal him, Lord. We believe that you can heal him if you get there quick enough. And Jesus looks down, says, Lazarus, the one I love, Lazarus is sick. And they say, yes, he's sick. He says, and he's going to die if I don't go quick enough. They say, yes, he's going to die. He's on his deathbed. And Jesus says, okay, we're going to wait 2 days and then I'll go. Mary probably called Martha, come here, get away from Jesus for a second. Did you tell him that Lazarus was going to die? Martha says, yeah, I told him. Mary says, but why is he going to wait 2 days? We said if he got there quick enough and he healed him, then he would be okay. Martha says, I know. Mary says, he's crazy. I love him. He's my best friend, but he's crazy. Let's be completely honest here. God does some things that are a little bit irrational sometimes in our lives, and we don't understand why he's doing them, but he's doing them for his glory. And so Jesus explains why he's doing this. He says two big words here. He says, so that. I'm waiting 2 days so that the Son of Man might be glorified. And so Jesus, 2 days later, comes to the tomb. The tomb. He's not sick anymore. He's dead. Lazarus is sitting in the tomb, dead. He's already been wrapped in the cloths. He's not breathing. Jesus stands at the doorway and he says, Lazarus, get up and come out. And who gets up and comes out but Lazarus? And I could only imagine what Jesus was thinking at that moment. I think Jesus at this point in time would have said something like this. I'm not just in the business of healings, but I can raise people from the dead too. I don't just heal people. I raise them from the dead. There's multiple reasons why you're still waiting on the promise that you have been searching for so long. It might be healing. It might be restoration of relationships. It might be something that's going on in your church right now. You might be searching for the one who you thought was going to be your wife. God gave you a promise that that person was going to be the right one, but it's been delayed. But if we have a deeper faith in him, and we can start to recognize the purposes of why we're waiting, because there's so many different things that are swirling around us, we can start to recognize that God is at work in the lives of other people because we are waiting for our promise. But then finally, in the end, when the release date comes and he gives you that promise, it's going to be not only the promise that he gave you and the vision that he gave you, but it's going to be a breakthrough that you could have never imagined, because it's going to be so much bigger, so much greater, because our God is eternal. He is the greatest God. He is above all things. And I promise you, that is a God that you want to be coming through on his promise, because his promise isn't just going to be what you thought it was going to be. It's going to be something so much bigger and greater.